Hello everyone, today I'm at the Vietnam Military History Museum here in Hanoi.
Okay, and here we got our first piece of American military equipment. And here it says it was provided as aid to France in the invasion war in Vietnam. All I've ever heard is the Vietnam War. And of course they're not going to call it the Vietnam War, but I've never heard it with such propaganda. So it's already interesting to see what it's called. Aircraft manufactured by the US in the invasion war in Vietnam. It was equipped for the puppet forces and it was captured by the Liberation Army of South Vietnam. So I think there's going to be a lot of information provided in that sort of manner. Again, mentions puppet forces. This was captured. We've got some different bombs, a wreckage of a French and American plane. Or planes, I think it's, multiple. 435 French aircraft were shot down. B-52 aircraft engine used to bomb Hanoi. And here we've got a huge plane, C-130 transport aircraft, and used during the invasion war of Vietnam and seized during the Ho Chi Minh campaign in 1975, and then repurposed for defense operations along the southwest border of Vietnam. America does like to leave a lot of military equipment behind. Captured at Ho Chi Minh Airport, Tan Son Nhut Airport. Here we got a father and son waving the Vietnam flag in front of a US Air Force helicopter. This one was captured in Dom Nai. So I wonder how it was captured, because there's no damage. So did the Americans just flee and abandon them? And the Vietnamese have like painted on to the tank king of the battlefield, and then sunset means thunder. Here is a list of all the wars and fights that have happened throughout the history of Vietnam. 214 BC, 181 BC, so many. Now all of these ones are against China or whatever it used to be. Then here we've got one in 1784, which is with Thailand, and then a couple of years later another war with China. Over on this side is the more recent ones, where you've got the war against the French, where they regained their independence. The Communist Party was founded in 1930, and the Democratic Republic of Vietnam was created in 1945. So there was another war with the French until 54. Straight after that, they had the resistance war against America. So the first part of the museum is the dawn of national foundation and defense. So since 179 BC, Vietnam has faced over 1,000 years of fighting with China. There's not that many pictures because it was such a long time ago before photos were even a thing. So here, this is a bombing of Ma Mei Street. Now, a lot of you probably know this if you've been to Hanoi. Ma Mei is in the center of the old quarter, very close to Beer Street. It definitely doesn't look like this anymore, thankfully. And I would never even have known that it's been bombed. This is the main market in the old quarter in Hanoi. It's still standing now. It survived the war. I don't think it burned down or had to get reconstructed. But yeah, that market was there in 1946 and still here now. So here we've got a map showing in orange how much of Vietnam was occupied and controlled by the French. And then now it's going to be the Americans, the main focus, I think, of the museum. They had victory in 1954, according to the Geneva Accords, which stipulated that 2 years later there'd be a general election to unify the country. But, of course, the United States, being the United States, interfered in this, sabotaged the Accords, and invaded South Vietnam. So here in the early 1950s, the United States intervened in Indochina for the sake of the world, and they installed the puppet regime of Ngo Dinh Diem, conspiring to permanently divide Vietnam. And you can see here on the map this is where it was. So Da Nang, which is one of the most popular places now in Vietnam, north of that all the way down to the south was South Vietnam, and then North Vietnam. Now, it just gets even funnier. The US imperialists colluded with French colonialists and their lackeys and spreading misinformation. Wow, even back then, misinformation. They had killed 68,000, tortured nearly 700,000, leaving many disabled. And they even established concentration camps. Jesus. Photos from the wartime, and there's one here. It says US troops burning down houses of civilians during operations in South Vietnam, and then US troops employing flamethrowers to kill civilians. We've got a change in the war. So it went from the sabotage war to the destruction war. This was after the US failure on the battlefield in South Vietnam. They started launching attacks on North Vietnam, and they dropped over 700,000 tons of bombs. They killed nearly 80,000 people and injured about 120,000. 28 out of 30 towns were destroyed, 350 hospitals, 1,300 schools. 12 days and nights where the US continuously bombed Hanoi and Haiphong. 43 American pilots were captured alive, and this forced the US to go back to the negotiating table to eventually sign the Paris Peace Accords. So here we've got a whole street in Hanoi that was pretty much wiped out by the US bombing, and it resulted in 287 deaths, including 40 elderly and 55 children. So here we've got the jeep that was used to escort the president of South Vietnam at the time, Duong Van Minh, to a radio station to announce his surrender and, well, I guess pretty much the end of the war. Soviet tanks, which were used to breach the gates of the Independence Palace on April 30, 1975. So the tank would have breached the gates, and then the South Vietnam president was taken in this jeep to the radio station to announce his surrender and the South Vietnam surrender. So here is the next part, which is about rebuilding, protecting and developing Vietnam since the wars have ended. The wars still didn't finish, so there was an invasion war by Pol Pot from Cambodia. Roughly 2 years after the war with the Americans ended, Pol Pot and his army invaded southwest Vietnam, but the wars never seemed to end with Vietnam. Everyone wants a piece of Vietnam. You got China, France, US, Cambodia, Thailand, building political courage, strong ideology, and absolute loyalty to the fatherland, the party, the state, and the people. So we've just come out the back of the massive building, and even over 6 months since this place opened, a lot of it is still under construction. Maybe they're going to turn it into a garden or something nice. We've got a memorial here at the back, but again, it's not very nice at the moment. So here are all the American tanks, helicopters, planes that were captured during the war. The Victory Tower where we started, and then in the background, which we'll come to, it's Vietnamese planes and I think maybe some Soviet machines that were given to Vietnam. But it is huge, this place. This museum cost $100 million to make, and it hasn't even finished yet. So inside this building where we went, there was the lower floor is everything I showed you inside. But there's a second, third and fourth floor which is not open. It's said that there's going to be like special exhibitions and collections areas, but even 7 months since it's been opened, even longer, that does not exist. Ticket prices to get in here, it costs 40,000 dong, which is fine. It's very cheap. And once everything's completed, it will be very, very good value. And then it's open from 8 or 8:30 until 4:30. Here we've got a missile manufactured by Soviet Union as well. And even here you can see all the Russian writing on it. So that's the end of the Vietnam Military History Museum. I hope you enjoyed seeing the other side of the story in the Vietnam-American War and all the other wars that Vietnam has had to endure throughout their long history. Please like the video and make sure you subscribe to find out where we are going at the next stop. Bye for now.